On February 1st, 2021, I published a video on a brand new channel that I called Underdog Research. The idea was to create a series of videos explaining people how to identify stocks that have the potential to tenfold over time. I realize now I simply don't have the time to create all the content, so I just want to give you my favorite name today, which is also my favorite name that I pitched 10 months ago when I recorded the original video. In that original video, I pitched a SPAC that I thought had excellent odds of tenfolding over time, although I did not know which company it would merge with. By now, we know which company it has merged with. So I will use some of the content that I recorded back in February and then add an update at the end of the video why I think the stock can still tenfold going forward. The ultimate goal of this video is to explain step by step how you can find the next Tesla. At the end of the episode, I will give you my favorite name that I believe has the best odds of tenfolding over time. It is a stock that very few people even know exists. The only thing that I'm asking is, please watch the entire video. I will walk you through step by step how I came to the conclusion that this is the best risk reward out there. And if you understand the thought process, you can replicate it for yourself and create your own list of tenfolders. And if we want to understand disruption, we need to be familiar with the S-curve adoption model, because every disruptive product or every disruptive industry lives somewhere on this S-curve. What Tesla and EVs in general are doing to the internal combustion engine happens on an S-curve. What Netflix has done to cable TV happens on an S-curve. What Apple did to Research in Motion, to BlackBerry, to Nokia and flip phones happened on an S-curve. What Amazon is doing to retail stores happens on an S-curve. What I mean by that is when we have a technological breakthrough that will take over the marketplace, it doesn't happen in a straight line. At the very beginning, only the early adopters know about it and price is way too expensive, so not many people are interested. But as price comes down, so does the adoption go up. And at some point we reach this threshold where the entire S-curve takes off. When it does that, the incline gets steeper and steeper and steeper until we hit the max angle of attack right here. After that, it slows down a little bit, but growth is still exceptional until we reach about 80 to 90% of saturation. It is our job to find industries and to find stocks that live on this S-curve, and we want to get in before the majority of people see this S-curve coming. So we want to get in right before this takeoff phase. The question is, how are we going to find those stocks? And this is what I will be talking about next. First, we need to identify a disruptive industry that we want to invest in. And everybody knows that electric vehicles are disrupting ICE cars, but because everybody knows, those stocks have run already. So it's a lot harder to find a tenfolder in that industry than it was maybe at the beginning of 2020 or before that. I believe we will get a lot more bang for our buck if we look for stocks that are related to it, like virtual power plants, companies that work in the autonomous driving industry, companies that might be suppliers for electric vehicles. Maybe they use some 3D printing process. Once we have identified the industry that we want to invest in, we need to zoom in and look what kind of companies operate in this industry. And here we want to find the 2-3 leaders that are the best in class in this disruptive industry. Once we have narrowed it down to a couple of names, we need to take a closer look at management. Management is probably the most important factor that determines if a company fails or succeeds. And because of that, I have very strict rules here. I want the CEO of the business to have founded a company before that he either brought to market via IPO or sold to another entity for $1 billion or more. I know we are excluding a lot of people here, but we do that for a reason. Because we want to limit the odds that we are wrong to almost zero. And if we have a company that is operating in an industry that is disruptive with a rockstar management, then the odds that this company will fail are almost zero. But just because we have an excellent management team in the disruptive industry does not mean we pay any price for that stock. And that is why it's very important that we keep an eye on the market cap of a certain stock at a given time, because the risk reward need to make sense. Let's look at Tesla, for example. It is clearly operating in a disruptive industry, or it is probably disrupting 3 industries all at the same time. It clearly has a rockstar management, but the market cap is already $800 billion. The market cap is simply the number of shares multiplied with its stock price. And that is the value that the market gives that business today. And we are looking for tenfolders. For Tesla to tenfold from here, it would have to go from 800 billion to 8 trillion. I'm not ruling out that Tesla can do that, but I think it will be a lot easier for us if we focus on smaller companies that are maybe only worth 4-5 billion at the time, or even smaller, because it's a lot easier to go from 4 or 5 billion to 40 to 50 billion than from 800 billion to 8 trillion. Once we have identified a stock that checks all the boxes, we simply need to time our entry. And here we buy weakness. So when other people freak out, where other people would place their stops, that is where we then buy and place our limit buy orders. We do not get freaked out when price comes down. No, we are strong hands. We buy weakness and we sell strength. Once we've pulled the trigger and we bought one of our tenfolders, the right course of action most of the time is to simply hold those shares for years, because it takes years for the market to really appreciate disruption. And these S-curves, these are usually 5-10 years kind of cycles. So most of the time, buy and hold is the right approach. The only thing to consider is when price is going vertical and it simply feels greedy to ask for more, it might make sense to take some off. Or if opportunity costs are becoming too high. For example, would I rather have money in Tesla at an $800 billion valuation, or use that money and move out of Tesla to find a smaller business that has a better risk reward, a better chance to tenfold from here? And the stock that I'm talking about is Rodgers Silicon Valley Acquisition Corp. It is a SPAC that has not yet announced who it will merge with. That SPAC here, and the ticker symbol is RSVAU. Here you can see the ticker. It closed today at $15.33. The reason that this is my favorite name right now, and I already bought the stock, and the reason why I bought it is simply because of the leadership. TJ Rodgers is behind this SPAC, and I will show you a little something about this guy so that you get an idea who we are dealing with, because this guy is a rock star. By the way, if you want to do some digging yourself, go to rodgerscap.com, then you get to this website here, and behind this button you will find the investor presentation. This gives you a pretty good idea who you are dealing with. But let me give you a summary of who TJ Rodgers is. This is his Wikipedia page, and it is not that this dude just founded Cypress Semiconductors and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar business. This guy also saved SunPower, and I believe it was in 2001 when he tried to convince the board of Cypress to invest in SunPower to save it. The board first denied him, then TJ wrote a personal check for $750K and later on convinced the board to invest $9 million in SunPower. And only 6 years later, the company had a market cap of $10.4 billion. And it is not random that he did it, because he did it after that once again. And he did it with Enphase. And you have to take a look at the stock chart. The ticker symbol is ENPH. It is rare for a stock to go 100x, but to do that within a 4-year time frame is extremely rare, because in January 2017, when TJ made his first investment in Enphase, Enphase was worth less than $2 a share. But because this guy knows his stuff, he understands technology, and that is more important, he understands manufacturing. So when he saw the technology, He knew there was potential there, but the manufacturing process sucked. So the company needed capital and it needed TJ. So TJ put in the capital, fixed the manufacturing process, and within a year of him getting involved, the stock started moving. And since then, the stock just went vertical, and Enphase is now a household name. Back in February, we did not know what company the SPAC would merge with, but this SEC filing gave us a pretty good idea in what direction TJ wanted to go. And when we scroll down here and click on proposed business, we can see what company they are targeting. They're looking for a business that is operating in the green energy sector, electrification and storage, which is batteries. They are looking for something in the smart industry, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and the new manufacturing wave. This is the sweet spot. This is exactly what I would like us to invest in, because we know the electrification is coming. We know the ESG movement is on its way, and big companies have no choice but to play ball. Otherwise, they will lose their customers. This is the newest investor presentation of the company that SPAC merged with. It is called Enovix, and it is a battery manufacturer. This graph here shows the energy density of lithium-ion batteries. The solid red line is the past, and here is the projected energy density going forward. Enovix says that their technology today is where the standard lithium-ion batteries will be in 5 years. And as they iterate on their technology and make it more efficient, their curve will even be steeper. So they believe in 2025 there will be 9 years ahead of the competition. The company already has close relationships with multiple OEMs out there. These are companies that produce wearable devices like headphones or watches, military radios, cell phones, laptops, and car manufacturers who are working on EVs. And they say that the revenue funnel is north of $1 billion by 2025. To me, that sounds like a conservative estimate, because they don't even include augmented and virtual reality in those numbers, because they don't know how big that market will be in 2025. I'm really liking the way they are approaching this. Instead of over-promising and under-delivering, they are trying to keep the ball low so that they can under-promise and over-deliver. And this is how you create stock appreciation. The main difference between a regular lithium-ion battery and the 3D architecture of Enovix batteries is that the regular batteries, they are wound up. And as the battery expands and contracts while it is being charged or discharged, it becomes wobbly. And this causes major inefficiencies. That is why these batteries lose power over time, and it becomes a fire hazard because these batteries really heat up big time. We don't have that problem with this 3D architecture. The expansion and contraction within this battery is less than 2%. So they are way more stable. They are not heating up as much. So they are way safer. And the best part is they figured out how to create an anode that has 100% silicon. Their go-to-market strategy is to focus on the high-end products first, where they get the most bang for their buck, which is wearables. Because the batteries are so much smaller there, they get more per battery cell, more per watt hour that they are selling. Then they want to move into mobile devices, laptops, cell phones, and 2025 and beyond into EVs. And this slide is to me the most important one in the deck, because this is the biggest differentiator between Quantumscape, which in my book is just a lab project, and Enovix, which is way past that phase, because they already have a production line up and running, and the products are currently validated by their customers. In Q2 2022, they will have commercial deliveries of their batteries, and in 2023, they will ramp up production by retrofitting existing battery factories, because 70% of the components of the working stations that you need to produce an old school lithium-ion battery are identical to producing an Enovix battery. So only 30% needs to be replaced. This has huge advantages because it allows the company to scale quickly by acquiring old manufacturing plants or by licensing their technology to other battery manufacturers and then collecting a royalty. And this slide tells us that they are focusing on these high-end markets first because they can generate more cash flow if they create batteries for smartwatches or batteries for augmented reality eyewear or for cell phones, because you simply get more dollars per kilowatt hour that you are selling. So your cash flow is higher, and the company is planning on funding future growth with their cash flow. Obviously, the market will be open if they ever wanted to raise capital to accelerate their growth. But I do like that their intent is to grow organically. The industry has known for a long time that silicon would be a beautiful material to create an anode with, but they haven't figured out how to make it work. And that is why standard lithium-ion batteries only have a couple of percent of active silicon in them. Enovix has 100% active silicon in them, and it is a game changer. These batteries, they don't heat up as much, and that means they will be able to charge them faster. They will last longer, and you can create casings around the batteries that don't need to be as strong, so you can fit in more cells in the available space. Overall, it is just way ahead of the game. What I'm really liking is the approach relative to Quantumscape. Quantumscape yaps a lot and doesn't deliver much. Enovix is exactly the opposite. They are very low key and they are focusing on execution. And this is why I believe we need to be long into every earnings announcement, into every presentation they are having, because they will only talk if they have something to say. And I believe that this is all done by design. TJ Rodgers has led 3 multi-billion-dollar businesses either as founder and CEO or on the board or because he turned them around. So he knows exactly how to communicate with Wall Street, and he has created an environment, a work culture within Enovix that is all about execution. And I'm not just making this up. I take that from the fact that at the battery day that Enovix had a couple of months ago, the CEO started within the first couple of sentences saying that TJ always says no excuses.
Welcome. It's great to see a lot of live people. I think for a lot of you, maybe the first time you've been out in a big event like this. Should let you know that as a company, we've been like this since June of last year. You know, when you're trying to build a factory, you don't have time for a lot of excuses. TJ's big on no excuses. I think he wrote a book on no excuses.
So I think TJ, although he has only been a board member, he's not officially part of the business, is actually running the show behind the scenes. I believe that safety will be a big differentiator of Enovix batteries, because even after 500 cycles, the structure of the 3D architecture, the way these battery cells are stacked, looks almost brand new. This tells us that these batteries are very stable, which decreases the risk of a thermal runaway event, which is a fancy way of saying a battery fire, because nobody likes the idea of plugging in your EV at night and then your garage catches fire while you're sleeping. I believe the risk is massively reduced using an Enovix battery. I think this will be a major selling point going forward. Another huge advantage that the company only mentions in like a little relative sentence, because the anode is 100% active silicon and doesn't heat up as much as a regular lithium-ion battery. Odds are that super fast charging will be possible, so that this battery will be quicker at any supercharger. This is another huge advantage of this 3D architecture. I mentioned earlier that a standard lithium-ion battery is rolled. And this is a representation of how a manufacturing plant would look like. So they all come of these rolls: separator, anode, separator, cathode. Then they are rolled up and then they are packaged. If we take a look at the factory of an Enovix battery, the rolls here on the left are identical. The only difference is the stacking. Here the battery is not being rolled. Instead, there is a 3D cutting process, and then these batteries are being stacked. That means we can retrofit any production facility that exists today that is manufacturing batteries by replacing the middle part of the plant, which takes up about 30% of the entire production process. And this is also huge, and I mentioned that before, because it gives the company options. They can just go by themselves, purchase one battery facility after another, retrofit them themselves, and then produce all the batteries. Or they can decide, anybody who wants to partner with us, here is our IP, pay us a royalty. That way they could scale so much quicker than the competition. They could pretty much become somewhat of a monopoly. Let's go back full circle and see if Enovix meets all the requirements that we outlined earlier that make up a 10-folder. Does it operate in an industry that is disruptive? I would give it a definite check mark. Is it a supplier to electric vehicles? It is. Can their batteries be used to store energy for virtual power plants? Yes, they can. And they even have some 3D component in it. It is not 3D printing, but it is 3D laser cutting. So this is definitely a box we can check. Our second criteria was, is it one of the best in that industry? And I think it is number one. So I give it a big check mark for criteria number 2. The third criteria was management, and you probably get an idea what I'm going to do for this box, because TJ Rodgers is the man, and I want to make this check mark even larger, because there is not many people on the planet who have accomplished what TJ has accomplished. And although he is not officially the CEO, oh man, that is a crooked check mark, but I think he is running the show. All the evidence tells me that he is ingrained in the culture. And by the way, here is a fun fact. He also invites the staff of Enovix to his vineyard once a year. So I think he is an integral part of the company. And the final question we need to ask ourselves is it all priced in? And for that, we need to take a look at the market cap. As of today, October 28th, 2021, Enovix trades around $24 and has a market cap of $3.5 billion. The question is, how big is the potential? Can Enovix be worth $35 billion within 5 to 10 years? And I absolutely believe it can. Let's do some Mickey Mouse math to understand how big of a market is this. So let's assume we have 75 million vehicles sold worldwide a year. And we assume that each battery pack costs $2,000. So that would mean we have a revenue potential of 150 billion a year. Obviously, there is no way Enovix is capturing the entire market. And who knows, maybe in the future we are not having 75 million vehicles sold. Maybe because of ride sharing, and maybe we will have autonomous taxis by then, this number will be smaller. But if we keep it simple and were to assume that Enovix were to be able to capture 20% of that market, which I think is reasonable. If you have the best technology, you can ramp up production quicker than anybody else because you can retrofit existing battery plants. This would be $30 billion of revenue, just the vehicle side of the business as potential. Let's cut this number in half. Maybe we have fewer vehicles in the future. It is still $15 billion a year. So how much would this business be worth if they are generating 15 billion in revenue? Would the market cap be above 35 billion? I am pretty sure it would. And this Mickey Mouse math does not include any of the other devices, because the electrification is not just in the vehicle space, it is everywhere. So I believe this number here is conservative, and I believe the stock has actually more upside potential than 10x from here if we are talking 2030 and beyond. The bottom line is no, it is not all priced in. So I will also give the market cap a green check mark. The bottom line is, I believe Enovix has all the qualities a potential 10-folder needs to have. The risk that this business will fail is almost zero. This makes it very difficult for me to even consider investing in other stocks, because I don't believe in the concept of diversification. I know a lot of people are going to scream now, what? This is reckless. How can you put all your money in one basket? How about diversification? And to quote Mark Cuban, he says diversification is for idiots. Only people who don't know what they are doing, who are incapable of analyzing a business, need to be diversified. And Warren Buffett says the same things, he just uses different words. He calls it insurance against ignorance, and I will put a link in the description where you can hear them talk about this topic. I know in finance classes they teach you how great the Markowitz portfolio is and that you can have higher returns while you're reducing risk if you have a diversified portfolio. I think this is absolute nonsense. But just because I believe it is nonsense doesn't mean you should believe it is nonsense. I am just saying I have a hard time investing in anything else long term than in Enovix, because I only have a certain universe of stocks that I am comfortable analyzing, that I can trust my decision-making process. Within that, within my little universe, Enovix, as of today, is by far my favorite stock. That is why I put everything that I'm not using to trade futures or options, I will put and have put into Enovix. But please remember, don't buy anything just because a dude on YouTube told you that Enovix is the best thing since sliced bread. Do your own research and figure it out for yourself. And if you think I'm wrong, please comment in the section below and outline why I am wrong in my assessment. Or even better, if you have another 10-folder that you want to pitch it to me. Explain to me why there is another stock that has a better risk reward. And maybe I can make a video about it too, because if I can understand what you are pitching to me, I might be able to convey that message to other people as well. Either way, only time will tell. So let's speak again October 28th, 2026, 5 years from today, and see where the price of Enovix is by then.